just weird. And that was one. I was like, what does this mean? All right. So let's continue. To recap, the feast of the Passover has come. Jesus knows that his time is coming near. He's going to uh, die on the cross, and he's going to return to the Father. And he loves his disciples and loved them to the end. So that's like my my little paraphrase. Um, and supper being ended, the devil having already put into the heart of Judas Iscariot, Simon's son, to betray him, Jesus, knowing that the Father had given all things into his hands, and that he had come from God and was going to God, he rose from the supper and laid aside his garments. He took a towel and girded himself. And after that, he poured water into a basin and began to wash his disciples' feet and to wipe them with the towel with which he was girded. Then he came to Simon Peter, and Peter said to him, Lord, why are you washing my feet? Jesus answered and said to him, what I am doing now you do not understand, but you will know after this. And Peter said to him, you shall never wash my feet. Jesus answered him, if I do not wash you, you have no part of me. Simon Peter said to him, Lord, then not only my feet, but also my hands and my head. And Jesus said to him, he who is bathed needs only to wash his feet, but is completely clean. And you are clean, but not all of you. He knew that he would betray him. Therefore, he said, you're not all clean. Uh, and when he washed their feet, taking his garments and sat down again, he said to them, do you know what I have done for you now? You call me teacher and Lord, and you say, well, for so I am. If I, then, your Lord and teacher, have washed your feet, you also ought to wash another's feet. For I have given you an example, that you should do as I have done to you. Most assuredly, I say to you, a servant is not greater than his master, nor is he who is sent greater than he who sent him. And if you know these things, blessed are you if you do them. All right. So I love that little sequence. And it has a lot of deep stuff to say about service. So let's get into that. So Jesus, they're at Passover, uh the Passover dinner, and that's something that uh the Jews still do to this day. They eat unleavened bread, and it's to commemorate their passage out of Egypt. Um and when the angel of death passed over them, when they were passed over them during that final plague that the Lord did to judge the Egyptians and to judge Pharaoh, and the plague of the killing of the firstborn children. And because they had put the blood on the doorpost, they were passed over from that plague. God, um, the the angel of death would pass over them. They commemorate this because it's a commemoration of God's mercy, of God's mercy on them, and 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 of their that mercy leading to their freedom, leading to them actually getting out of bondage and going into freedom. So they have this special dinner, and the general thing is that they have to be clean, when they go and they sit down. So I understand that, washing the feet was really important in these ancient times. And you don't quite think about why. Because I've read this a million times, and when I read about, the washing the feet, and I understand it basically. But I actually kind of like I didn't get like why washing feet was so important. I thought it was just symbolic. And like, no, I actually think about it. It's actually practical, right? I mean, these people, they're not like me. This is why I don't understand it. They're not like me. Like I wear socks and I wear shoes that cover my entire foot and whatever else. So when I'm walking out in the street, my feet are not themselves getting dirty. They're getting sweaty maybe, but they're not getting dirty. So, these people, their feet are actually getting encrusted with dust and dirt and all that as they go along. They're wearing sandals all the time. So, for them to be clean for when they go into places, they got to be clean. They got to be clean, especially they're taking part of a special ceremony. They got to be clean. So, uh, you know, this kind of work of washing the feet, this was typically the work of, if the home had servants, these servants would do this for incoming house guests. I don't imagine all these people had, you know, the ability to have actual servants. Maybe this was like the work of like young children in the home, stuff like that for guests. But in this special occasion, they're observing all these things that they have to do. But who's doing the washing is Jesus. Jesus gets himself ready, puts on the towel and all that, and he's going to do this work of washing the feet. And now you got to think of it from Peter's perspective. From Peter's perspective, this is disrespectful to allow Jesus to do this. And this is because Peter has in his mind a hierarchy of his group. Peter is not uh he's not unaware of the hierarchy of his group. He knows that Jesus is at the very top of the hierarchy of his group, and he's the rabbi. They follow him, like, they're not all walking around together like equals. Jesus is the leader of this group, and this is, very servile work. And he's like, "Wait a second, no, wait a second, don't do this. What are you doing?" If anything, Peter's probably thinking, if anything, we should just wash our own feet, you know. Or if anything, I should wash your feet because, you're you're the guy, maybe, you should put your feet up and I wash your feet. Because he's just observing the he's observing what he realizes is the true hierarchy. He's not at the top of it, you know. Uh and in typical uh situations, uh, the top of the food chain, or the top of a hierarchy, is served by the lower part. But Jesus, he goes and he turns it on his head and he says to him, um, if I do not wash your feet, if you don't let me do this to you, then forget about having any part with me. You're not, you know, you can have no part of what I'm doing. And in fact, what I'm doing has significance, and you'll learn what it is later. And with this, you know, eh, Peter, uh, he has enough humility and enough understanding that's like, okay, Jesus is saying this, so I'm not gonna insist. No, 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 no. You are the man. You're the guy. I'm telling you. Put your feet up. I'm gonna wash your feet. He's like, okay, if this is what you're saying, then I'm okay. Then you wash my feet. Then, in fact, wash my head too. He's like, uh, you know, Peter. What, um, what causes him to first, react negatively to Jesus serving him is his sense of like Jesus is higher than me. So, he ought not to submit himself to that kind of like dirty work. But once Jesus clarifies, no, I want to do this work for you. And in fact, it is good and right for me to do this cleaning work for you. Then, because actually, for the same reason, because Peter sees Jesus as higher and as his leader, when the boss says, no, you let me do this, he humbles himself and he's like, okay, hey, okay, cool, you do it. So, what motivates the initial Uh, it all comes from a good heart, actually. Uh, what motivates his rejection, his respect and love for Jesus, ultimately motivates his acceptance of Jesus serving him in this way, even though it's a little weird for him. So it all comes from a good heart. But Jesus is showing him a better way, essentially. Um, Now, this makes the greater point of of service, right? He goes on to say, um, "You call me teacher and Lord, and you say, well, because it's true." Right? So he's Jesus there. He's actually acknowledging what Peter was saying. He's like, you know what? Uh, you see me as higher up. You see me as the rabbi, and you're right. You're right. I am the guy. Jesus is like, I am the man. It's true. I am I am at the top of this group here. But if that's true, a servant, if I am at the top of this, if I'm the master and you guys are the servants, great. But and this is where he turns it around. A servant is no greater than his master, uh, nor is he who is sent greater than he who sent him. So what he's saying there with that is, you know, I'm showing you that I, being at the top of this group here, I'm willing to serve. I'm willing to condescend. I'm willing to do this for you. So you're right. You know, you you are lower than me, and and y- and you certainly are not any greater than me. So if I'm not above doing this servant work, you being lower than me, you are not above this either. This is what we do. What we do is we serve. And then in another gospel, Mark, he says that the master is a servant of all. So service is at the key is a key to the Christian life. It's a key to following what Jesus wants us to do. Um, and if we don't have a heart of service, now let's make a distinction. What is service? Service is action on behalf of others. That's particularly what it is. Um, service is not simply works. Works is just action towards goal, but works can kind of be in the service of others. Works can be done in a self-serving. You can do things that benefit you and only you, and you know that's just how it is sometimes. Uh, with works in general, but service is this type of work that is on behalf of others, and uh, it it puts you in a position of stooping down, of of coming under someone to lift them up, to help them, because you're acting on their behalf. So that's what service is, as I'm saying it, as opposed to work. So this service aspect is important to the Christian life because Jesus does it. And if Jesus is your master and Jesus serves, you're no better than Jesus, you serve. So that's the logic that the Lord is presenting in this. Um, so um, you know, there's more to say about this in this particular section. Jesus is doing this aspect of cleaning, and of course there's like a deeper thing of like the cleaning is not just service. It has like a spiritual significance of Jesus actually cleansing you. You need to be humble enough to realize that you need the cleansing of Jesus. You need the cleaning of Jesus spiritually, for your heart, for your life. You need to be cleansed in the blood of Jesus, to be washed of your sin. So you're not going to be able to do it on your own. You're not going to be able to. You ain't going to be able to serve enough. You're not going to be able to be good enough. You're not going to be able to do anything enough um, to be deserving of salvation. So you need to come under the grace of God, believe in the work that Christ has done on your behalf, the service that He has done for you, as it says in Ephesians 2:5-8. What Jesus has done is to read Ephesians. I'm sorry, not Ephesians 2:5-8. Philippians 2:5-8. Um, let this mind be in you, which was also in Christ Jesus, who being in the form of God did not consider it robbery to be equal with God, but made himself of no reputation, taking the form of a bondservant and coming in the likeness of a man. So this idea of condescension, of God truly being the highest, and Jesus being, you know, uh, of being at the highest there can be, being at the pinnacle of everything, being God, but not not wanting to lord over us and anything like that, but wanting to come down and serve us, to take on even our likeness, our humanity. Uh, Being found in the appearance of a man, he humbled himself and became obedient to the point of death, even death on a cross. So, you know, this the act of service is act of humility too, it's 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 reflective of the humility that God has. So, the worldly idea, the idea that Peter has in his mind, and I think we all do, is that to gain stature and to gain status and to get higher in whatever endeavors we're in, like, work or anything, to have more stature is is to uh to be able to, like, kind of hold that over people, you know and to be able to sort of wield your stature and honestly, to maybe to get things out of people, or to use it to your advantage, to be served, to be served by your stature, where that's the world that's the world's understanding of stature. That's our sinful, fallen, frankly, very demonic understanding of stature. That you know to have stature and status is to use it for your own ends. um no, God is showing us that uh you have to serve. You have to come under and be humble and serve. If God does that, you ain't greater than God. So there you go. Now, um, so I think I've made the point. If service is key to the Christian life, it is key to what Jesus has taught us. It is actually a part of uh, God's character, the humility of God, and all that. Uh, if that's all true, then how do we serve then? If we're supposed to serve, how do we serve? What are the opportunities? Well, there's opportunities everywhere. There's opportunities everywhere to serve. There's home, there's work, there's school, there's church, there's just everything. Um, Service ultimately, to reiterate, is just action taken on behalf of others, to others, um, to the good of others, to be more specific. And when you when you do that, you serve. Now, you know, when you think of this kind of in a church context, or I am teaching this now in church, uh, in a church's live stream, you might think that, okay, what ultimately, the church is trying to get at is just, service, serve the church. This is essentially tacit encouragement to just serve the church. It's not just that. Like, it's a whole attitude, it's a whole way of being, Um, it's that humility, having that humility that the Lord has will uh cause you to serve in all aspects of your life or wherever you can. So, at your in your home, to be of good service when you're a son or a daughter, to be of good service in your home to your mother and father, to like actually be obedient to them, at work, to do your work as unto the Lord. That's biblical. um School, thinking of, like being under people to learn from them, like a rabbi and stuff like that. It's good. Learn as much as you can and learn well, and be appreciative to your teachers about that. Serve in your church, your church, um body is there for you, loves you. The pastors are trying to serve you. You might not take it. You might not take it as service. You might just say, "Oh, they're talking at me from the pulpit." No, they're actually trying to serve you. They're actually delivering the word of God to you so that you can, uh, so that it could feed you. Like a preaching and a teaching like this. Even I'm trying. I guess I'm trying to serve you. Doing this. It's like, um, uh, your church there, serving you by teaching you the word of God, and teaching it, um rightly, and dividing the word of truth properly. So, this is service they give you. And how can I serve my church? How can I, just like I thought about all the home stuff and school and all that. So, you know it's the key is the humility, and the recognition that, um service is at the key to what the Lord wants you to do. So find those opportunities. And, um if you kind of do, like, you're introspective and you think, well, you know what, maybe I actually don't serve. I don't tend to serve that much. I generally am more, my actions, my work is much more self motivated and self seeking, self focused. Then do something about that. Do something about that. That's, there's certainly, things you want to do for yourself, and there's things where you want to make yourself better and whatever else. But you can make that an idol. you know I think there is a kind of a modern idol, the kind of modern idol of self-improvement. you know how can self-improvement be an idol? How could it not be bad to self-improve? uh See people that are like obsessed with self-improvement, and then you'll start to see it's the spirit behind that is, very often there's not there's certainly not a spirit of service and humility. It's a lot of, like, of wanting stature to lord over. And, you know this is not the way to be. So, seek to serve. Now, can you overserve? Yes, I think you can. And I think there's one part in the Bible that shows this very, very clearly, is Luke 10:38 through 41. This is a story of Mary and Martha. And let me find that. I think I have that. Here we go. So here you go. Mary and Martha. The heading part in the New King James is Mary and Martha worship and serve. So here you go. 38. Uh, Luke 10:38. Now it happened as they went that he being Jesus entered a certain village, and a certain woman named Martha welcomed him into her house. And she had a sister named Mary, who also sat at Jesus' feet and heard his words. But Martha was distracted with much serving. And she approached him and said, Lord, do you not care that my sister has left me to serve alone? Therefore, tell her to help me. Jesus answered and said to her, Martha, Martha, you are worried and troubled about many things, but one thing is needed. and Mary has chosen that good part, which will not be taken away from her. Okay, okay. Now, you know, everything has its, uh, you know, moderation is a great virtue. Everything has its, everything has its sort of excess point. Um, you hear me. I've spent, the bulk of this talking about service and how good service is, and service is important, and you should give yourself to service, right? So now, how can I say, oh, but pump your brakes a little bit sometimes when it comes to service? Because uh, you can overserve. The attitude of Martha while she's serving. Um, she's serving, and she's busying herself with work, and it is work on behalf of others. I imagine she's cleaning, she's doing stuff like that. She's not there prettying up her hair or anything like that. She's doing work on behalf of others, so in and of itself is good. But there's a time and a place for everything. And in the time where you're visited by the master, you're visited by Jesus, surely the better part is to humble yourself, sit down, and let him wash your feet, so to speak. Let him serve you, because there's this kind of thing of like, uh, some people, they're very good. They work, they really work. They take up tasks and they do them to their fullest, and they do them to their, you know, to their sore. But, there's uh that's not what service is about. You know, there is surely in the word, there is a Sabbath. There is the need for rest. That's actually one of the earliest things in the Bible, that God mandates. He himself rested. God, you know, rested on the seventh day from the creation. And this as an example for us. So rest is important. And and also working so much and serving so much and stuff like that, if you do this to excess, this can create in you, I think, something like what Martha has, is a sort of resentment. Is a kind of, well, I give all of my time and my effort to others, and my goodness, surely this isn't being properly compensated or properly appreciated. And you know come on, what the heck. uh, this is not the attitude to have. you know Serve as much as you want, but this is not the attitude to have. For the Christian, you should serve uh joyfully. You should, and part of doing that is to know when to stop, when to rest, when to let Jesus serve you, by sitting at his feet. And that actually kind of brings up other ideas of rest and the Sabbath and stuff. And that's kind of beyond the scope of this, but it's certainly interesting. And I think it's something to be said that Jewish people, the people to whom God revealed himself first and clearest, um he gives them this mandated day of rest, and they observe it to this day. And they observe it, I think, probably much more uh literally and much more consistently than probably any than a lot of Christians do. Maybe some Christians are, observe like a actual the day of rest, and I'm really gonna lay off of work. um Most people don't actually observe a Sabbath, right? And you feel like you're hurried, and your whole life is about, work, 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 either for yourself or for others. But uh, Look at the modern Jewish person. These are some people that are like the most productive people in the world. These are people that for their small little group, their output way outnumbers like their numbers, and they punch above their weight, so to speak. And these people have this rest day, and they observe it. And as far as I understand it, some of the most Orthodox Jews, they they're some of the most wealthy and the most well-to-do as far as productivity and whatever. And I understand that their day of rest is a proper day of rest. They really don't do anything for the most part. Uh, for